Are you that person who just wants to be yourself and you are trying to find your own way? That's our definition of a renegade. Welcome to today's Antidote. I'm Bob, that's Tom Brush, and in a minute we're going to discuss today's topic, which is measuring effort. Are you at a crossroads and uncertain about what to do next? Join our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. The link is in the comments. Hope to see you there soon. Hey, Tom, good morning. Wow, I like our new intro. It needs a little work, but it's getting there.
It's getting there. That was pretty good, though. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. We're constantly striving to get to average, from below average to average, which really takes us into our topic today, which is measuring effort, which follows on the heels of last week where we were talking about consistency. And in talking about consistency, we were speaking over the last couple of days. What happens when you have consistency in your effort? And the next thing logically is you're looking at consistency in what you're doing. You have to look at your effort and what that's leading to. So jump in here, Tom, and talk a little bit because I talk way too much.
No, I think that's important. It's interesting. I posted that on LinkedIn last week, talking about consistency and really what is it important to be consistent about. And there were a lot of conversations about the value of consistency. And is it consistency? Is it your effort? How do you figure it all out? And how do you keep asking questions to find out if your effort is, if where you're at, is this effort truly answering the problem? And if it is, what's the next problem? And so I think it's always important to go back and measure what are the efforts we are doing. And we'll talk about why it's important later. But I think it's really, when you set a goal, how are you working towards accomplishing that goal and where are you in that progress? And that's the measuring of what it is that we're doing so that we know that there's a purpose and we're not just doing it to do it. We have an understanding of how well it's going.
Because we have some metrics that we're actually using. And I think what I find when I'm working with clients is often those metrics are faulty. So for instance, let's take websites. Oh, we had 3,000 views. I remember I had a client who all excited about 3,000 views a month. Then we looked at where they were coming from. Almost all of them were coming from China. And this was a local catering firm. And I said, you didn't tell me that you cater in China. And he said, we don't. And I said, well, that's where all your traffic's coming from because Google Analytics told us that. We redid his website, and then he was getting about 300 people each month. But they were geographically right around where he wanted to be. So is the 3,000 the mark that you want to measure? Wow, I got 3,000 hits. Or is it 300 from the people where you want them to be?
Yeah, I think that's the critical piece is how you measure it. And really, you can't measure it unless you set up your goals appropriately, unless you have the right goals. And I know we've talked about SMART goals in the past, but a lot of times, like I was working with some organizations last week about their strategic plans. And the goals that some of them had written as they wrote their plan were like increase, improve, things that I guess you can measure increase, but by how much? If you increase by 1, is that enough? If you increase by, is there a difference between you increase 1 or by 100? How are you figuring out the progress towards that goal if you don't have really good measurements in place to figure it out?
It also, I think, gives you a sense of accomplishment along the way. Mm-hmm. So I have a goal that we're going to increase our Ring of Renegades membership up to 1,500 members by the end of the summer. And so all this past week, it was the first week I was working under that goal. I could measure against that result. I knew how many people I needed to add a day, and I could track. If I had 3 fewer, I knew I was off. If I had 3 more than the goal, I could track that as well. And I found for me, it gave me guardrails and a goalpost, both at the same time. It told me what not to deviate from, and it also gave me the focus that I was moving towards an objective.
Right. Well, and I think the beauty is that you've defined what your metric is. Now
Right.
you can figure out what is your progress towards that goal. It's not just, I'm trying to do this. Well, how do I figure out where I am? There's always the next test of when do we evaluate and how do we evaluate it? And we'll get into that this week. But I think if you're not very clear on what you're trying to accomplish, it's really hard to know what is your progress to that goal.
Right.
And you can take the moments to figure it out.
Yeah. Jessica says, time to set some goals with some actual numbers for myself. That's absolutely the name of the game. There's got to be some way to track it, because if you're measuring, I guess some people measure revenue, which is one measurement. Absolutely. But what about, in my situation, I was measuring revenue and I was doing things that were working right before all this pandemic hit. And then suddenly most of that stuff that I was doing went out the window. Not because my effort was wrong or ineffective, just the circumstances changed. And I think that's one of the other benefits of measuring is you get the earliest possible indication that something is different. If you're measuring your employees' gas usage and suddenly you see that, wow, they're using a lot more gas, well, that's because the tunnel is shut down and they have to drive around another way. And you can have that discussion and say, hey, what's going on here? And then you can make alternative plans. And to me, that's the key to this. It's measuring not just to go, nice job, Bob, you're amazing. That's all well and good. And I support that completely. But it's also to get the earliest possible indication that something isn't working the way it used to.
Right. That was part of our conversation last week. These were nonprofit organizations and they were trying to come up with a fundraising goal. And so even though some of them had the final goal, one of the things I offered to them was, well, what are some milestones that you want to achieve? And in that world, December 31st is an important day. 10% of all philanthropic giving happens in the last 2 days of the calendar year. And so on January 1st would be a good time to benchmark, where am I at? What is my progress towards that? And if I'm not, then I have to figure out, well, what am I going to do at a time when there's a lot less people thinking about giving over the last part of the year, the beginning part of the year?
Neil's got a comment. You need to measure both lead and lag measures. For example, lag equals weight, lead equals diet and exercise. So I've never heard that before. Have you, Tom?
I have not, but I love it.
Yeah, I that might be one to start internalizing and start using. It sounds really impressive. But yeah,
I guess I just thought of those both as goals. I didn't think of them as, goals and action steps. My goal is to lose weight.
Well, the lead part
and exercise.
If I do these things, I get that, and one leads to another. It's the causal connection, which I think most of us, when you get down to it, Tom, really don't track and measure nearly as well as we could or should. And I'm amazed when I talk to successful companies, they are always tracking to the nth degree. It's amazing. I mean, big companies will track everything, small companies. And you probably remember when KPIs came out, key performance indicators. And there was all the stuff around that. And you still hear KPIs. And what there really is a way to keep tabs on your progress. I see we have another comment. I have a lot of goals that have nothing to do with revenue. Consistently checking in on my progress gives me a chance to make incremental course corrections that will lead me to achieving my goal.
Yeah, that's Tim.
Okay. Yep. There you go. Tim is definitely that guy. I've talked to Tim. He is constantly checking and recalibrating, almost like that autopilot. And then Neil says, lead measures are controllable and actionable. Lags are results, but not actionable.
Absolutely. This was in the fundraising, the nonprofit world, which I was in for a long time. We can't control someone saying yes. Same in the business world. We could go out and talk to a lot of people about being our clients or our customers, and we don't control whether they say yes or no. All we can control is that we were doing the right actions to give them the opportunity and put ourselves in the best position to say yes or no.
Exactly. I'll compare it to golf. When I play golf, I know if I'm swinging the club well, sooner or later it's going to work out. If I hit a tree, but I got a good swing in, I'm celebrating the good swing, even though I hit a tree. That you just, man, that felt really good. And then you swing another time and it feels really good. And before you know it, you're starting to hit the ball well because you're doing that thing that leads the lead to get to the lag. I see another comment. As easy as it is today to keep track of everything with computers, revenue, parts, supplies, etc., it amazes me how many companies don't do it.
That's John.
Okay, absolutely. John is certainly someone who keeps track of everything. The other thing, Tom, is a lot of small companies like solopreneurs, 2, 3, 5 employees, really don't invest in the effort to track their results. And I will tell you, that's one of the things when you bring it to a company, it's amazing how it improves revenue. It improves motivation. It avoids wasting money. It avoids wasted effort. So often it gets away from we've always done it this way. And you start to look and go, well, you did it this way, but what did that effort get you?
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay. I see it now.
Yeah, well, you can figure out the why. What are the things that we are doing that are effective that are leading to this? It's those companies. I think Disney is one of them. They track everything. They know where people are at, what the direction is they go within their parks. They know how long they stand in line. They know all of that data so that they can figure out how to use that to have a better experience for their customers.
But also to be more efficient, more cost effective. And I would argue right now in the current climate, being more efficient, more effective, and more cost concerned is critical. And also really understanding what it is that your customer really wants you to be doing. And sometimes those measures help you figure out that, because you might be selling 80 items in an online store, but it might be 5 of them that are generating most of the revenue. And you might sit and go, why am I warehousing all this other stuff? Why am I doing all the things? Why do I have the boxes for all those other items that hardly anyone buys? Why don't right now I zero in on those 5 items and be the expert on those 5 items? But if you're not tracking that, you have no way of knowing that. You're just going to say, well, we have a store with 80 items.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that if you're not taking the time to figure out for your business or organization what measurement means for you and what are the measurements that are important, you're missing a golden opportunity to be more effective, more efficient, and probably make more money.
And it's not that hard. That's the other thing. People will say to me, oh, it's going to take so much work. We can't go back and do it. Every single time they're like, wow, that was worth the effort to just figure out what we're at. And if you're striving for consistency, this is really the test of consistency.
Correct. And I think the challenge is, that many small organizations and even large ones, people are so involved in the doing that they don't think about the sort of measuring. They're so busy because they're lean and they're trying not to have too many people and too many people doing different things, and that they don't put an emphasis on that data, that piece. Professional sports teams have done a complete 180 in the last few years. It used to be like, oh yeah, we have this feeling about this player, or we have this understanding, and I think I can see a good player. Now it's all about like, what are the stats and what's the data, and what do they do on the 2 balls and 1 strike. They have all of that.
Yep.
How they do against a certain pitcher or against a certain defense. I mean, it's incredible, almost annoying, the detail of stats that they have within professional sports and what they're studying. But it's helping them be more effective.
That's it. Got a couple more comments. Drop another ball and swing again. I'm going to guess that's from Tim. LOL. John, okay. He and I are supposed to play golf someday. For more on lead and lag measures, Neil suggests see the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Neil's always got the book title for everything I ever say to him. It's amazing. Another one, while I heard the tagging of KPIs, the importance of figuring out what metrics need tracking cannot be overstated. And then I was missing $20,000 on my monthly business revenue. Because we detail everything in the computer, I found it in the 10 minutes. It was a clerical error. That's probably the most compelling reason of all for why we need to do this. And then without the computer information, I never would have found it.
Yeah, I heard a story once. It was a pizza place. Then they had employees, who were running the shop at, I forget what it was at, and they couldn't figure out why their revenue was down. And so they finally, the only way they could measure it is they put a camera up. And what they noticed was that the person cutting the pizza cut them in slices. I forget what the difference was. Cut them in slices of 10 instead of 8, and was pocketing. Somehow there was they hit.
Well, if you cut in 10 slices and sold the 8 and then took the 2 and pocketed it, yeah,
correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Wow. As a guy who used to work at a pizza shop 30 some odd years ago, I'm thinking this through a lot right now. Where was that idea?
You have missed your opportunity.
I oh well, my life sliced a different way.
Correct.
Ba-dum-bum. Well, Tom, what's that one thing we should do today? That antidote, that thing that will get us to the next step.
I think that we just need to measure our efforts. We talked a little bit about what it is. So I think you need to be very clear with specific details of what you want to measure and when you're going to measure it. I think that's another, when I used to put out our annual plan with my team, at the same time, we would sit down and I would give them 4 dates. And here were the dates that we were going to review it. Now, it was a big, broad, we reviewed it every month individually, but the overall plan we looked at every 3 months to make sure we were making progress towards those goals.
I think that's great. I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to try something new today. If you have never measured and you want just some general ideas of how to do it because it just completely scares or worries you, Tom and I would love to talk to you about that. Or you can join our Facebook group, The Ring of Renegades, and you can post it in that Facebook group and you will get feedback from other people. We have a growing group of people who are focused on helping each other use the information to be more successful. If that's of interest to you, please, you can go to Facebook, type in Ring of Renegades, and boom, you'll have it. Or you can direct message Tom or me. With that, Tom, let's close the book on today's episode. I'm going to not even do the Wayfinders pitch. They'll see it in a second. But if you're interested, I guess I have to now. If you're interested in really taking action, we have a group called the Renegade Wayfinders, and we're taking decisive action to really do the things that we're talking about here and really take them to the next level. If that's something of interest to you, go to renegadewayfinders.com and you'll learn more about it. So until tomorrow, which tomorrow, Tom, will be talking about how do you actually measure effort. We're going to get into that tomorrow. It'll be a week of talking about measuring. And by Friday, you'll have it completely covered. With that, folks, have a great day. Happy Monday. This has been today's Antidote.